So we built with exactly this logic in mind, our tokenomics. We're introducing something we call the chest. And the idea is that all of the protocol revenue I have to begin with is going to be redistributed to the user to be reused in all of our dApps. So you can think of it as a discount or as a free access to our dApps if you have locked your governance token. The reason we're doing that is that on a broader view, we're going to be able to service and give access to all of the influence in crypto. So it can be voting power, it can be gauge power, it can be attention, it's going to be different things. Okay. And so by holding locked HPAL, our locked governance token, you basically hold access to influence. So it's crystallized influence. And that's something very unique that we're trying to take with our token. And I think it can be very powerful because if you are a governor, or at least someone who participates in governance on a regular basis, your interest is going to be locked in our protocol simply to get easier access to the resources you use.
Welcome to Mission DeFi with Brad Nickel, where we explore projects in decentralized finance that are innovating and driving our mission of financial freedom forward. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review Mission DeFi and spread the word by posting a tweet to the show. All opinions expressed by Brad Nickel or his guests are their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Black Knox, Material Indicators, or any other affiliated organizations. You should not treat any opinion expressed by Brad Nickel or his guests as an inducement to make a particular investment, follow a particular strategy, or become involved with any project. A project being featured on the show is not an endorsement of that project in any way. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Now, here's Mission DeFi with Brad Nickel.
All right, I am excited today to have Fig and Alejandro from Paladin Protocol with me. These guys have a really interesting model for leveraging all of governance in the ecosystem. So, guys, welcome aboard. If you could first introduce yourselves and then tell us your background and then how you ended up in this crazy world. Fig, you want to go first?
Yep, for sure. So I'm one of the co-founders of, to give more background, before being full-time into crypto, I used to be a banking lawyer. I don't know what I can say outside of that because the more time we spend on Paladin, the more we identify to the protocol.
That's got to be like unbelievably good insights for you.
I do think it helps us building a safer protocol overall for everyone inside of the DAO, which is the goal of it.
That's awesome. So you were a banking lawyer, and then how did you cross the chasm into this world?
Because I was always around crypto a bit, like all of you guys, looking at the prices going up and down. And a few years ago, I had the pleasure of discovering other project, which was called Lent at the time. And they were talking about something that was coming that was called DeFi, that it was going to be amazing. And I thought the same thing at the time. I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense coming from someone that's in finance. There's a lot of things that can change, and we have the potential to change them this way. So what we did is that we tried a few ideas during hackathons, and we ended up having something that resonated a lot with what we wanted to do, which was building around vote lending and around democratizing activism. So what we're trying to do at Paladin at heart is allow more people to participate in financial activism, the same way that you have a lot of companies today, more people to own assets, control assets. You have governance tokens, but even stocks, right?
Right.
People are only using them for the speculative premium. There's another side to it, which is the governance premium, the power that you have by basically enabling people to govern between themselves the protocols. And there's one layer on top, which we haven't started working on, but I think that's really important, is that also we actually are able to value these governance premium and to empower the people around them. We have a way to coordinate them, because crypto was made to scale trustlessness and coordination. So the long-term goal is to enable minority holder coordination with what we're doing at Paladin. But right now, we're at phase one, which is vote lending.
All right. All right. All right. Alejandro, tell us your background.
Sure. So I'm the head of communications at Paladin. And before I got into, let's rewind even further than Paladin. So before Paladin, before the craziness of crypto, I was actually in the political world. I used to work in Tallahassee and also Washington. I come from like the political side of things of voting, not the financial, but the public aspect. So immediately when I saw decentralized governance, I'm like, oh, this looks really interesting, because I was just didn't think of the utility behind crypto besides speculation and the voting aspect past certain issues like coin splits or coin forks. So this actually really interested me, got to know the team, and here I am. And this is a very rough description, going off of what Figa said, a very rough description of what we are doing in terms of financial voting. But this is how one of the elevator pitches I have in public is, for example, be like me and join a conference call or quarterly call with, let's say, Tesla Motors, and you have a handful of shares, right? In reality, you are, of course, a stockholder, but do they really care that you have 5 or 6 or 7 shares? No, they don't.
Nope.
At least in what we're doing in governance, we can at least quantifiably measure the 0.00% of your effect in voting, or doing that the same with companies. So you can see the connection there and how it's able to be measurable, not just a symbolic gesture. So again, that's have a very high level view, but in one thing that we're working on.
Nice. Another interesting coincidence with the two of us is I started my career off managing political campaigns. So it's nuts. It's crazy. All right. So let's do this. Can you guys tell me? So I have a general understanding of the goal of this thing is to incentivize or increase the power of activism as it relates to governance, as it relates to protocols. But can you guys give me the background on what was the thing that created this idea? Was it just one moment? Was it a progression of things? How did you guys come about saying, oh, this is something that we need in the space? Was it looking at other protocols? What exactly made this happen?
It's definitely a process in the sense that it's quite obvious governance is important, especially in crypto, because we're empowering governance holders much more than we are with stockholders. There are much more things that you can do. You can modify parameters, enable partnerships, control the mission, control the treasury, and I'm just saying the obvious ones. And the second thing is that instead of having one annual shareholder meeting, you can basically put up a vote anytime. So that's super powerful. And you can do everything that I just mentioned anonymously in internet on a global scale super quickly. So it's pretty crazy. It's corporate governance, but on steroids. So just this fact is insane. And then you can add for the fact that there's almost no one cares right now. 95% of the people don't actually turn out to vote, which was pretty crazy. So we thought, how do we build GovTech on crypto? Or even if people do, we have to find something that one corresponds more to the actual ecosystem. And two, we actually have to stop enabling people to care. So how do we show them it's valuable? We basically crystallize the value of the governance premium. So that's what we're trying to do with vote lending. And vote lending is interesting because if a lot of people are not participating, it means a lot of people are actually ready to sell their assets. Their governance power. And on the other side, you have a very small number of people who want to push ahead, who want to contribute to the DAOs, want to try to make things work. And what we're seeing is that, I don't have exact statistics, a good number of proposals don't even reach quorum. Simply because of pure disinterest, which is a really big problem. So the idea of vote lending was to start to be the seed of a solution. And that solution is the broad vision we have at Paladin.
So the first thing is vote lending. And after that, you guys are going to add to kind of things to strengthen governance and incentivize governance. But okay, let's walk through what you mean by vote lending. I own 1,000 tokens of Project Brad governance tokens. What if I was part of the Paladin ecosystem? What could I do with that? Or what will that be? What will that enable for me?
So if you own governance tokens, then you can either vote, provide liquidity, or you can deposit them into Paladin. What Paladin does is that if you already have yield rewards because it's a yield-bearing token that has governance, like Stake Avid, we're going to also compound the rewards for you. So just depositing is already a plus for you. And then on top, what we're going to do is that we're going to sell your vote. So it goes into a vault. And when people want to buy a vote, we basically sell the delegation mandate. So it's not like a traditional lending protocol that sells the asset. We only sell the right to vote. So it means the person cannot take away the token and never pay you back. Yes, you can't. There is no liquidation or counterparty risk, which is very different from a liquid because it's only the vote. So you can remove the delegation at any time at the smart contract level. There is no risk. So what happens is that the person just pays and he buys your delegation on a very high level. That's what happens.
How long is this a period of time that it's bought for? A single
Yep.
vote that it's bought for?
No, it's per period of time. So we've been building the product by trying to minimize as much as possible a governance attacks, because of course,
Sure.
enabling vote lending can become a vector of attack. So what we did is that first of all, you don't buy per vote, but you buy per period. So you actually have to become responsible about how much time you want your vote. So it can be a strategy because instead of buying for a vote, you're buying to create an offensive or a defensive position for a certain time.
Got it.
And on the other side, the really important thing about that is that it creates innate mechanics which can basically push out bad actors. I'll give you an example. If someone, because the interest rates are dynamic depending on the utilization of the pool, if someone tries to borrow to do something bad, all the users can reach quit out of the pool, and it's going to skyrocket the utilization rate of the pool, and it's basically going to drastically reduce the time in which the time of the loan duration. So you can push
very
out
interesting.
bad.
That's very cool. Okay, so we have a scenario where users can essentially deposit their delegation rights to this. You guys deposit it in a vault, and then people can buy them or borrow them for a period of time. They then execute what they wanted to execute from a voting perspective on particular proposals, or get the rights to actually submit proposals and then have those voted on by a protocol. And in the meantime, as a user, what am I gaining by delegating my vote that are attributed to my tokens to your protocol?
Well, you're earning money because you're
Right.
getting revenue out of that. So you're getting
Sure.
the interest rates. So you're basically selling the votes you're not using. You can think of it as a way to manage more efficiently your resources, because you can actually lend out your votes when you don't care about the vote and take it out and vote yourself when you care about them. Something
Nice.
important is that every single of these has to be done before the vote is put on chain, before the snapshot. Otherwise, it's too late.
I got it. So the votes have to be delegated already prior to somebody putting up a proposal for vote.
Exactly. Because what happens,
Because you could game it otherwise.
yeah, that's the thing. Because what happens that when a vote is taken, there's a photo that's taken of all the holders, and these are the ones who are allowed to vote. It's called a snapshot.
Sure. Makes sense. And then from a technology perspective, I'm assuming there are only certain protocols you guys are working with initially out of the gate, because it sounds like there's probably a good degree of work dealing with that. Is this something where you're integrating with specific protocols and how their tokens work? And also you're integrating with, in some ways, do you have to do an integration with Snapshot, or is it just being able to delegate those voting rights to people, and you guys have a mechanism you've built to fit almost any model?
So there's just a module that you need to add to enable delegation on Snapshot. So right now we work on Govern Bravo, which is Compound and Uniswap,
Okay.
and on the Aave model and on Snapshot.
Nice.
And basically any model that has delegation, we can very quickly adapt to it.
Awesome. So anybody that has delegation can work with, connect with, or Paladin can work with.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great. Do you see this as something that protocols will use in order to try to get to quorum when they think something's important for a vote?
Oh yeah, that's literally our client base. It's DAOs and protocols that are basically trying to not gaining the right attention, or sometimes don't have the ally. We've seen these where some protocols get shut down because one of the VCs of their competitors also has a big position in this protocol. This has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's brilliant, because this returns the, if you've got the standard lag in participation, this allows the founders and the folks who actually created this thing to steer the project in the right direction. And also, while those that have the tokens are actually still getting rewarded for participating, but also allows them to take back power from VCs that may be killing everything that happens.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Okay, so the lending thing, that's live now. People are able to utilize it. People are able to stake and participate.
Yes, it's been live since September. Yes.
Nice. When did you guys start the project?
December 2020, January
wow.
2021.
Wow.
That's when we started with the hackathon. Actually, I was working on a similar concept, like even up to October or November 2020. we had and started coding in January. Then we worked on building the full vision of the product and building a testnet until the summer of 2021. I spent all the summer preparing mainnet, released end of September, early October, the mainnet, and then released the second app, which is an iteration of what I just described, but for Curve and for Boost markets, most notably. We released it 1.5 months ago, which is called Worded.
Wow. Okay. Now that's a pretty long haul in DeFi, but have things changed in the protocols or how things function that have made you guys have to shift gears a little bit on development, or has it been pretty steady in terms of the delegation integration with Snapshot and that kind of thing?
Nah, nothing changed.
Good.
Crypto changes this very quickly. First of all, governance was not as prominent as it was today. There was not such a thing as the curve wars.
Right.
The turnout was even lower. There was no such a trend as DAO tooling. Crypto was not actually that. It was big, but it wasn't as big as it is today. It changed. So I'll give it to you this way. I think that when we started working on Paladin, there was maybe 4 times less TVL than there are currently on Ethereum, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. 2020, if you looked at a DApp index, it was pretty much a ghost town. So you guys were really early ahead of the curve on something that you saw that might happen across the protocol. That to me is really interesting, that you guys were building and betting on something that would actually end up being gigantic. It drives everything that's happening in this space right now.
Absolutely. And the fact that I keep on hearing since we're on Ethereum, the fact that I keep on hearing about the merge and reading stories about that, it just adds to, I'm very bullish. It just adds to not just on Paladin, but just the whole entire system in general. And
Sure.
I think we're still in the first innings. So
No, absolutely. Look, I think what it does is it positions you all very well for the future. My personal belief is that DAO governance and this type of governance that's being spearheaded in crypto is actually going to permeate the entire world. And I think that most organizations will be forced by just public participation to implement these kinds of things. Now, I don't think everything's going to change, but I definitely think we're going to go far beyond just financial applications. And I think there'll be lots of opportunities. That's great. Okay. Yeah.
I just wanted to bounce back very quickly. I totally agree with you. And even more than that, I think that especially around governance, everything we're today building around for DeFi is going to be replicable, for example, for corporate governance in the stock market.
Yeah. Look, there's already been tokenized security, so it's just a natural next step. And then your business model gets, at least in this first iteration, gets really interesting, right? Now, if you've got the corporate world dealing with the horrible participation levels of proxy voting, even in stocks right now, if you've got the corporate world, then Paladin is the center of kind of the vote controlling, the lending. That becomes a really powerful model. That's tremendous. Just a small uptick in the DeFi adoption utilizing you guys could be tremendous. But when that moves over, it gets really interesting, I think.
100%.
That's promising. All right. So phase 1 is lending. You guys are up and running. How are people reacting to it? I was concerned this was going to be a really complex topic, but this is actually a pretty simple thing for people to get. So are you at the stage now where you're really trying to build community and involvement and engagement from people in your own protocol? And where have you guys gotten in terms of adoption so far?
I'll take that. Absolutely. And so I can speak to, at least from when I came on with the team in September, mid-September. And yeah, back then our Discord and our Twitter followers were roughly around, let's say 300, 400. It was a matter of just growing the community, growing the trust, most important, the trust with the users. So we have been doing these monthly community calls. We're now implementing bi-weekly contributor calls. So I speak with them on Discord on a daily basis, now with bounties. So it's just a matter of engagement, putting out content. The whole entire team answers. We always have moderators. Now we have, for example, one of our moderators in the Philippines. So we always have someone taking care of questions 24/7 because it's basically nighttime over there. And, but that's been crucial. As much, and I'm speaking, for myself, as much as we want to have this seismic change, not only in corporate governance, but also making you really happy to see in the public world, which, patience. The reality is we are aiming towards the DeFi, how should I say it? The DeFi, the degens, if you will. That's our main bread and butter audience. Those are the people that we're still aiming for. And those are the ones that, of course, we have already found diehard governors, so to speak, that have already been participating in our discourse forums and also participating in our snapshots. So it's piece by piece from the core up until this level of, okay, where's this critical mass? And in some ways, we're already on the path to experiencing it.
Nice. Very nice. What is the what is the next phase of this? It seems like there are multiple layers that you guys are going to be building on top of this. Are they all really, everything is related to this governance model and voting, or is it also related to other aspects of governance and DAOs? What's next for your protocol? Let's just make it.
The next right now is finishing vote lending, in the sense that we want to create a full stack platform of vote lending for Curve. So Curve today is offer governance proposal, boosting power, and Gauge. Today we're only doing boosting power. So we want to finish perfecting that platform, because we think there's a huge trend coming around V token. And what it used to be theoretical a few months, it's becoming pretty obvious right now, with all of the big projects that are thinking about locking backends. And we're one of them, not big project, but thinking about locking.
Right.
And so that's the first thing. For a bit of information, right now we have a bit over $10 million TL on Paladin, especially with the Aave tokens that we're managing. And on Warden, we have just shy of 5 million, which is roughly $10 or $15 million TVL2 on the second app, which are both governed by the Paladin. After that, we want to focus more on giving a better experience to contributors and to delegates in general in the ecosystem. So I'm going to stop at that, but that's the next stop that we want to do, because we think that now that we enabled easier access to governance power, we have to bring better understanding to the way it works.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Are you all going to stay on Ethereum mainnet for now? Do you have plans to move to other chains, other layers or chains?
We have been studying it. We haven't set on anything, simply because until very recently, and you talked about is governance evolving, there was almost no governance activity outside of Ethereum. Now, this is very wrong. There's a lot of protocol that have been buzzing with activity. So the question is, how do we capitalize from it?
Yeah, it seems like probably one of the paths is those that have copied the Curve model. So on Phantom, you have a lot of that going on, right? You've got Spirit Swap, you've got Solidly, you've got all of those things that are happening. So that's where my head was going. Is that kind of the next path for you, is just to pick out the things that you're already playing with that have similar models?
I would argue that, for example, what's working for Gauges, which is so a lot of people call bribes, which is a term we try to avoid. And because you have a political background, I'm sure you're going to be very aware of what we try to avoid.
The politics and the banking attorney. I can see why.
Yeah,
I see why we're avoiding the bribe term.
But in general, it's not because you created a system with bribes, with Gauge access and bank lending, that people are going to use them. So we're being very careful about looking who actually has the interest of the community and who is basically creating governance war. Who has conflictual governance, because when there's conflict, there's value. If you don't have that on a regular basis, there is no way it's interesting for us to build a platform. So we're being very picky and selective, simply because even on the biggest protocol, we need time for the deposits to come in, and we need even time and a lot of work for the loans to come in. So now it's finally starting to work on Paladin. We did $10,000 of revenue last month. We're aiming 100,000 this month, and it's just going to keep growing.
I think that's a smart approach. As you journey forth, you build slowly, not too slowly, but that you are building logically, smartly, analytically with the projects that you partner with. Oh, it's just dawned on me. You guys are essentially you're really almost a two-sided marketplace where you have two channels of customers, right? So you're like a B2B play on the protocol side, which we talked about earlier. And then of course you want community members from these protocols involved. And then on the third leg you want people to actually be involved in Paladin, and actually whether or not they have a governance token on another project that you've partnered with. So actually you have three legs here. I would assume that part of the strategy is that these governance token holders become PAL fans because they're participating in your protocol, and it makes complete sense that they would then potentially become community members for you.
So we built with exactly this logic in mind our tokenomics. We're introducing something we call the chest. And the idea is that all of the protocol revenue have to begin with is going to be redistributed to the user to be reused in all of our dApps. So you can think of it as a discount or as a free access to our dApps if you have locked your governance token. The reason we're doing that is that on a broader view, we're going to be able to service and give access to all of the influence in crypto. So it can be voting power, it can be gauge power, it can be attention, it's going to be different things. Okay. And so by holding locked HPAL, our locked governance token, you basically hold access to influence.
Nice.
So it's crystallized influence. And that's something very unique that we're trying to take with our token. And I think it can be very powerful because if you are a governor, or at least someone who participates in governance on a regular basis, your interest is going to be locked in our protocol simply to get easier access to the resources you use on the month.
Let's quickly talk about, you mentioned Warden earlier. Can you quickly run through what Warden is? Because I don't think we actually broke it down. Just if you could quickly tell people what that is. And then I'd like to get into the PAL tokenomics.
So I'll say about Warden is that definitely, Brad, you're talking earlier about, for example, reacting to outside forces. The Warden was definitely influenced by the CRB wars. It's there to capture the CRB. So basically is a marketplace for people to create, buy and sell their V-Boosts. Basically, of course, you have CRV. There have been people asking, hey, CRV's locked for 4 years. What can I do with it? And there we go. There's the opportunity to create boosts out of it. And so people are able to buy and sell. And as Fika said, we have quite an amount locked. And so we're looking to build upon that and, of course, integrate that into the overall Paladin system.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Let's talk about the PAL tokenomics, right? So I'm looking at the documents you guys shared with me. There's just the token itself, which is really, I buy it because I think you guys are going to make big money and everyone's going to want a PAL token, and I'm speculating on it. And I hope it goes up in value. I assume that's a base layer. And then tier 2 is HPAL, where I like this name, Holy PAL. That's awesome. And that's you're calling the contributor layer. Can you briefly explain what that means and how I convert my PAL into HPAL or Holy PAL?
Yeah. So basically, the Paladin, the token is a token that's being used as for speculation, right? So that is, and we realize this, that we're saying, wait a minute, we don't want to, of course, have the token go live when it does go live and have people just speculate on the token, buy and sell the regular crash. And we're saying, how do we separate these speculators, which is the obvious reality? I even speculate on coins too, who doesn't, right? To separate that from the actual governors, the people that want to be involved in governance. So this is why I was talking about chess, and this is why we've been developing HPAL and the benefits that go along with it. It's a layer system that we have talked about a lot in the past few months. We have a whole entire tokenomics article coming out on it tomorrow. And of course, we're going to be covering next week. But essentially, we're looking to incentivize governors financially through that aspect. So not to only govern and be more active, but carry in the stick of saying, hey, this is the reason why you want to own this HPAL. But it's building a wall between the Paladin and the HPAL, which is very important, so that one does not affect the other.
Okay. So the idea is I can stake and essentially lock my tokens and earn from that, which also gives me, I think it's 1-to-1 voting power on that level. And I can remove it at any time, but there's basically a 10-day cooling off period for removing from it and no longer having that power. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. So the idea is that we wanted to service all of the stakeholders around the protocol. So the speculators, which are the most present from today,
Sure.
the spectators or small time contributors, and the long time contributors and the governors. So the people who participate in governance. So the way we did is like, the more you align with us, the more you resonate with what we do, the more you have to align at the longer term. So
Sure.
the speculators who are just here, that's totally okay. And we're going to try to quote unquote benefit from their activity, because Paladin is going to become the main market maker by becoming the biggest LP of its own token. That's the reason why we're doing the LPP. It's not to fundraise anything for the team. And the idea is that almost all of the trading fees will go back to the DAO. So that's another revenue source that we can again redistribute for people to keep using our protocol and keep participating in governance more than that. That's the first layer. And so all the other layers were built to give more value and utility to people who actually want to participate in the protocol. So do you just to govern and participate, you want to look at and understand how the protocol is, you can stake it. You only have a 10-day cooldown behind it and can just start participating, start understanding. Now, you see the value in crystallized influence. You want to get more emission because we're actually going to reward people who stake in lock. You can lock in 6 months to 2 years. And that's the idea. And what's really powerful is that the more people lock, the more they basically aligning with us, and the more it's basically allowing us to gain traction. So the idea is to create positive feedback loops all around between people who are interested in purely speculating, people who want to participate, and people who want to totally align with us.
Very nice. So make sure that everyone listening understands tier 1 PAL is the speculative layer. Tier 2 HPAL, Holy PAL, that's the, you can lock up with a 10-day cool off period, but you get governance capability and you're earning. And then the locked HPAL, 6 months to 2 years, and it gives you extended voting power up to 1.5x the chest if the lock is over a year, and a higher emission bonus and the fee switch. Correct? So those are the 3 kind of main levels of participation with the PAL tokenomics.
Yep.
And is PAL available today, or are you guys launching that shortly, I believe?
So we're doing an LBP starting Monday on the 21st of March. And after that, the token will be transferable and open on the market. Right now, a few people have a bit of token. It's less than 2% of the circulating supply. And it was because we wanted to reward contributors, but the token is non-transferable. So there is no price on it. The idea of the LBP is that it's going to allow the market to do a healthy and fair price discovery.
Very nice. And then the last thing is, can you guys, we talked briefly about the chest, but can we walk through that one more time? I want to make sure people understand what the chest is and how it functions. And that's what's available to locked, the tier 3, the locked HPAL holders, correct?
So once you reach the critical mass of the locked HPAL, you unlock the chest. And as Sophia was mentioning earlier, there is basically in that matter, you have a whole bulwark of influence that's in the chest that allows governors in the space basically to put the influence of voting on steroids. It's a very powerful tool that we're using to initiate people that it's like a level up system where if people are going to grind, they get the reward at the end. So in this case, it is the chest is allowing people to use influence in certain protocols and voting aspect that is a lot more powerful than just even the loans that we're doing on the Paladin lending right now, but it takes a lot more work, obviously.
Got it. So you want people to long-term commit because the amount of work and the power that it enables people to provide influence within the system.
Yes. Yeah. And this is, again, it's a whole entire point of separating, as we've gone over, between the speculators and the people that want to be with us, because it's hard enough as it is to find the people that are interested in governance, not just in DeFi, but, oh man, I'm about to tell you, Brad, just in the regular political world, it's hard enough to find people that want to vote, that want to get out and grassroots. So if you can separate those speculators from the people that really care, plus incentivize them and also pay them worth the while through incentives mechanism, I mean, it's fantastic. It's a new way to play a system. And I honestly keep on dreaming, thinking about how this could work, not only in corporate governance, but also in the public field as well.
Absolutely. No, I think there's a lot of potential here for you guys to create I don't want to use the term weapon, but a tool that could change a lot of different ways that the world is governed. As you've been out talking to protocols about this, kind of what has been the response? Do they immediately say, oh, wow, okay, I get this. Yeah, we need this. I've needed this 5 times in the last 6 months.
It has been changing a lot. When we started talking about this, a lot of people actually absolutely didn't see what we're doing and just thought we're building like some kind of weird middle tech that was just going to push for corruption. The more time has been passing, the more we're actually seeing the need. You know why? Because people are starting to participate in governance and they're actually realizing it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So the more people start participating, the more, oh, wow, we need solutions. And the more what we do makes sense. And on another topic, the more time passes and the more our protocol is not used for governance attacks, and we can prove that it cannot be used for vectors of attack, the more credibility we get. So it's also like we understand that it's especially similar to real startups, right? Usually you start functioning after 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. It doesn't just go like this. And crypto, we had a lot of projects that blew up very early, very quickly. And they grew up to much more than what the team had in mind in terms of roadmap. And now a lot of projects are building just with the idea of blowing up. Mm-hmm. The truth is that if you want to build something that is truly new, and this is something we're clearly doing and we have been striving to do, it's complicated and it takes time. Aave and Compound took something both 2 years to take off.
Yep.
And now when you look at it, it's like obvious. Oh, I can just create a lending protocol and get $100 million of liquidity because I'm doing it to do liquidity mining. It was not that obvious 2 or 3 years ago.
No.
So this is why we're totally okay. And today, just the sheer fact that we're seeing our stake Aave pool growing between 10 and 30% a week, it's crazy. It shows that we have done something.
Yeah, that's incredible, especially since you haven't you haven't done a major marketing push yet. You haven't really been as out there to the world yet. So if you're having that kind of growth, imagine once people understand what you're doing and how you're doing it. And look, I think philosophically, your approach is the right way at the right time, right? We always cycle into these bear cycles and everyone gets grown up and starts trying to act like an adult. You're actually building and forming this thing. Obviously, you started before this bear cycle, but you're actually really taking kind of the bigger steps now of launching and getting full out into market share. At the same time, people are number one, are understanding the difficulties with DAO governance and participation. And number two, we're saying, you know what, we need to actually build something that provides long-term value, something that provides value back to people that are participating and provides value into the ecosystem. And I think that's a real differentiator for you all, is that it is about that. It's about building something that benefits the entire ecosystem, but also building something in a smart, strategic way. So I think that makes a ton of sense.
100%. We'll always strive for transparency, but again, we're not trying to, run before we can walk. Every single bit of information, project that we approach, even my contributor asked me like, hey, you guys have everything planned out for the LBP, what's going on? It goes, oh no, we have calendars, we have notes, we have calls, we have everything. We're always making sure that we move, we don't stall, but we keep on moving, but that everything is planned, because I've seen other protocols and read stories about other protocols that are just doing everything by the seat of their pants. And so we're just basically making sure that we have all of our bases covered, while also seeing what the problems or issues that need to be tackled in governance are.
Yeah. No, look, I've never seen a team as buttoned up as you guys at just providing information for me. That to me was highly impressive. Having a brand kit, I nearly fell out of my chair. It's amazing to see, coming from the startup and tech world, where some of these things are basics so that everybody does. Here in DeFi, it's not so much. So that's awesome to see. The LBP starts on March 21st. How do people go about participating? Where do they go? What do they do? How do they get involved?
It's going to start at noon European time, CET.
Okay.
Which is a bit early for the US, but bear with me. And it's going to be on Prime Launch.
Okay.
Which is an interface and a launchpad on top of Balancer. So it's on top of the liquidity bootstrapping pool that's built on Balancer.
Very nice.
So the way it works is that it's a Dutch auction. So it starts at a high price, and the idea is that the price goes down as no one buys it. And the idea is that people start buying it when they find a price they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so basically, and when they start buying, the price stops falling, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is to basically let your token fall, and then it should take flight. In theory, it could totally fall, but
hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Plus, we know we have a big community. We have over 2,500 people on our Discord who are actively looking and who are excited about this movement. We have a lot of private investors who have been looking at the product and believe it has strong fundamentals. I'm not one to judge. I am very biased. But the idea is that we, unlike a lot of protocols that have been doing LBPs or that have been doing similar systems, we're not coming with a roadmap. We're coming with two live products with over $25 million of governance token or under our belt, with actual revenue that's starting to prove out with the community. So we're doing this very differently because we're not doing this to raise capital. Full disclosure, we raised a private round beforehand. The reason why we're doing it is simply because we think it can help us bootstrap the DAO and help it create a sustainable revenue model.
It makes complete sense. And from a bet perspective, a protocol that has a functioning product is always a welcome thing to see, especially one that has revenue and a team in place that's professional. And I love the Dutch auction model. I think it's one of the best models for getting to fair pricing of a token instead of some kind of arbitrary number that the team assigns to it. It makes a lot of sense. And it's also a lot of fun for the people playing along at home that are trying to figure out when to jump in. So I think it's a great way to create interest. That's excellent. Anything else we should know about what's coming in the future for Paladin besides kind of the, hey, we want to change governance thing you gave me earlier?
Yes, perfect segue. I want to plug in that we're holding a Prime DAO or Prime launch, a co-hosting a Twitter space with them this Friday, 12 noon US time. I believe that's 5 p.m. in France, CET. You can find the information at @Paladin_boat on Twitter, or at, I believe it's Prime D2D on Twitter as well, but you can find us at Paladin_boat. And you can also, of course, hop on our Discord, which is in the bio, and we can share you the information for our Twitter space. More information is going to be revealed on how exactly to participate in the LVP when it goes live on Monday. It's going to be 72 hours of fun. You don't want to miss it.
That's great. How many people on your team?
Right now, yes.
We're 9, right?
Nine?
Yeah, we're 9. So it's mostly engineers, I'll be honest. And everybody-
That's always the way.
yeah, we're six devs and 3 non-technical people, 1 in design and myself in business development and Alejandro in communications.
I was going to say, you're on the biz dev side, Alejandro's on communications, and then the rest are primarily devs.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll be more honest, Brad. I'm on the everything side.
You wouldn't be of course you are, but are you actually writing?
No,
Okay.
I'm forbidden of writing code.
I have met a few attorneys in my life that became coders, so it wouldn't totally surprise me.
There is a really good DAO. There are a few of them, which is called Lex DAO. That's actually
They're awesome.
About that.
Yeah, they're awesome. Which is, that's a lot of power in attorneys' hands. But no, they're creating absolutely amazing platform and products over there. I'm so impressed with that group. They're fantastic.
There's a few small DAOs like this that people are sleeping on and don't realize the high quality of what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So is there anything else I should know about Paladin before I get into my last question that I ask everybody on the show? About what's coming, about, I don't know, anything. If not, we'll move straight into the question.
There is something interesting I think could very quickly mention is that we have made politics and sports very interesting for everyone, because we built narratives around it, and we have never built these narratives around corporate governance because there was no incentives for people in these circles to actually do it. I think there is a world, because the stakeholders are much more distributed, especially in crypto, where we're going to have to create these narratives and we're going to create what is called the governance game. And that's something we're really interested in slowly building out, because we think there's a huge incentive in making all of this decision-making process fun and interesting. Because we're talking more and more about these companies controlling the world, but the truth is that most of these companies are public companies. And we could all be stakeholders very easily. Just flip out your phone and buy a stock on Robinhood. And we could all say no, and we're not doing it today.
That is intriguing. It's really not fair of you to leave me hanging like that. Because now I'm going off in 500 different directions on what that means. But I love what that's making me think of that means, because theoretically, you don't have to have permission to implement something similar to what you were just talking about and the model that you guys have to have an impact on what's already happening in the public corporation world. That's very interesting. You'll piss a lot of people off, but that could be very fun.
Disruption. It's just how it works, right?
Yeah.
When you change things, you have to piss a lot of people off.
That's absolutely true. I'm very excited about that. I'm already excited. Look, I think you're addressing huge problem in the space, huge problem in all of governance, whether it's here or it's outside of there. I think it makes a ton of sense. That's fantastic. And now I've got 400 ideas floating around public companies and gamifying people that own stock off of Robinhood. That sounds like fun. All right. I asked this question of everybody that comes on the show, and it is what project or person do you think is absolutely critical to DeFi ecosystem, or that is really somebody that's inspiring to you? Now, you guys are the first 2 people to answer this question prior to Andre Cronje booking on his projects a couple of weeks ago. He was about 70% of the answers prior to today. So going to be really interesting to see what you guys answer, whether project or person that's really you think is important or inspiring to you in this space.
Want to go ahead?
Yeah.
I'd like to mention 2 people actually, for very different reason. And I apologize, guys, I'm very DeFi centric because it's in the ecosystem we grow. The first one is Julian Coe from Ribbon Finance.
Interesting.
It's very interesting the way they've been at the helm of the project, and they've had complication, and they've always been able to end up huge winners of situations they should not have been winners with. For example, they got civil attacked during their airdrop by one of their VCs who had insider knowledge, which was bad. And the VCs ended up having to give up his allocation, give back all the profits to the DAO he made. So it means they had no consequences whatsoever on their reputation, on their treasury, ended up with $2 or $3 million more in the treasury to start the life of the DAO.
That's awesome.
Which, like, it was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in terms of crisis management.
Yeah.
And the other one is Liquidity Wizard from Token. I'm extremely impressed by it. The project is insanely good, but more than that, it's the way they've been able to generate hype and build a whole environment around their community. It's out of this world.
Yeah, I think I love both of those choices. And I think you're absolutely right about how they've built that excitement and how enthusiastic that community is. Those are great answers. The ribbon, nobody's answered ribbon, but that is a deft handling of a crisis relative to, if you look at that compared to some of the more recent crises in DeFi and how they were managed, Wonderland and others, that is an awesome example to compare it to. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, you're up, Alejandro. You had extra time. He gave you extra time to think about it, man.
Yeah, in the spirit of communications, I'm going with something definitely more agnostic in DeFi, but I think his memes and his videos have kept us going through these times. I'm gonna nominate Gabriel Haynes.eth.
Nice.
Just you know what? I love that he has the attitude of not caring, not giving a damn, and he personifies the degen. I personally, there's a personal thing. I think we maybe need some more influencers, like DeFi influencers like him in the space, for more entertainment, but also to get the word out because the videos are fun. And yeah, I'm throwing him in there.
Nice. I love that. I can't wait to let him know that that's definitely his first pick for Mission DeFi. That's fantastic. You know who I like more than him though? And I even told him this, his wife. She cracks me the hell up. I love her videos about him. She's friggin' hilarious. She's absolutely hilarious. And I'm thankful I'm not his neighbor. Even though he's moved down here, I certainly don't want to live in the same building as the guy because he's a little loud. But that's a great choice. Yeah, that's a great choice. Guys, thank you so much for coming on today. I am really excited for what you guys are building. I'm going to take a much deeper dive, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate too what your mission and what you're going to do for the space. I think you have tremendous potential.
Thank you. We hope so too.